Moonshiners, Season 14 Final. The last run. The morning mist clung low to the Smoky Mountains like a secret, heavy with the scent of pine, diesel, and risk. Deep in the backwoods, Mark Ramsey and Digger Maines stood by their copper still, the steam hissing and coiling like a serpent through the trees. Their final run of the season was pure, maybe the best they'd ever made, and the jars glistened like liquid gold in the light cutting through the canopy. But tension hung thick in the air. "Feels like we're dancing on a live wire," Digger muttered, adjusting his ball cap and scanning the woods. "Something ain't right." Mark nodded. Quiet. Too quiet. Rumors had been swirling. Game wardens nosing around. ATF trucks spotted in town, and a federal plane flying low over the ridge just 2 days back. This wasn't just paranoia. Something big was coming, and they weren't about to get caught. 3 days earlier, Agent Collier had been trailing the Shiners for weeks, and this time, he had enough intel to bring the hammer down. With thermal drone footage, tire track matches, and an anonymous tip that described their exact still site, he was ready to move in. "I want boots on the ground in 72 hours. Collier barked into his radio. "We're taking him down before they vanish like smoke again." Back in the woods, Digger and Mark were already planning their exit. "Cody called," Mark said, tossing a piece of wood into the fire. "Said someone's been sniffing round the junkyard. He ain't saying it, but he thinks it's ATF." Digger leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. "Then we pull the plug after this run. One more, and we're ghosts." Mark nodded. One more. Final day of the season. Sunrise turned the mist a burnt orange as the pair loaded crates of their moonshine into the back of a beat-up Ford F-150. Its tailgate held on by a bungee cord and faith. They had stashed most of the season's earnings and product, spread across hidden hollows and fake bait shacks from Greene County to Cobb County. This was the last batch from the main still, and they could feel the weight of it. Halfway through loading, a low, distinct whoop-whoop-whoop echoed through the forest. "Helicopter," Mark said, eyes narrowing. "Time to go," Digger replied. They didn't run. They moved fast, methodically, decades of evading the law, giving their hands the calm of surgeons. Within 10 minutes, the still was broken down, buried in leaf litter and covered with tarp and branches. The mash barrels were dumped into a creek they knew would wash it far downstream. Mark tossed a camouflage net over the truck. "You think it's them?" "I think if it ain't now, it's soon." Digger pulled a weathered topographic map from his jacket. "We ain't going out the usual way. Gotta take Makata's trail." Mark's eyes widened. "That thing's barely a deer path, which is why they won't expect it." The chase begins mid-afternoon. The task force hit the ridge with full force. 4 unmarked trucks, 1 ATV convoy, and a thermal-equipped chopper swarmed the area. Agent Collier stood beside the lead truck, staring at tire marks and fresh footprints. "They're close." He radioed the chopper. "Sweep north along the ridgeline. They'll try and double back, but I want eyes on any trail that looks man-made." From above, the chopper's camera scanned the trees. "We've got movement. 2 subjects, heading west." Collier grinned. "Gotcha." Back in the hills, Mark and Digger's truck bounced and groaned along Makata's trail, a path better suited for mountain goats than man. The truck tilted dangerously on a slope, the rear tires spinning mud. "You sure this ain't gonna kill us before the cops do?" Mark hollered over the engine. "Quit your belly itching and drive." They barreled down a side gully, burst through a thicket, and emerged near an old collapsed bridge. "End of the line," Mark said grimly. Digger pointed to a narrow footpath. "Not quite. We hoof it from here. Hide the truck." grabbed the satchel. From the bed of the truck, Mark pulled out a duffel bag, money, burner phone, and 2 mason jars filled with their finest reserve. If this was the end, they were going out with flavor. They doused the truck in moonshine, low proof, but just enough to light, and tossed a flare into the cab. As the fire took, they vanished into the trees. Smoke and Shadow Sergeant Collier saw the smoke first. "Truck's on fire," one deputy called out. "They're burning evidence." Collier smiled. "And leaving a trail. Follow the smoke, then fan out." But when they arrived, the truck was a smoldering husk. Tracks led in multiple directions, some real, some fake. These boys were pros. "They're baiting us," said one agent, frustrated. "It's gonna take hours to comb all this." Collier, however, looked down and grinned. He found a footprint, a perfect waffle tread from Diva's custom boots. A limited run. He knew what to look for. This way. The final escape night fell fast in the mountains, and Mark and Digger crouched by a creek. Ahead, a wooden shack, a decoy built years ago. "Time for the magic trick," Mark said. Inside the shack was a trapdoor, under it a tunnel, short, narrow, and damp, that led 300 feet under a ridge. It emerged near a hunting blind on the other side. It had taken them 3 summers to dig it with nothing but shovels, bourbon, and cussed determination. "You go first," Diva said. "You're skinnier." Mark smirked. "Only 'cause you eat all the profits." 1 hour later, Agent Collier kicked the shack's door open. It was empty save for a few old barrels and a torn flannel shirt draped over a nail. "Check the perimeter," he ordered. But the dogs couldn't find a scent. The trail had gone cold. In the woods, under cover of dark, Mark and Digger emerged from the hunting blind, faces covered in dirt, but grinning like devils. "You reckon we made it?" Mark whispered. Digger looked back toward the woods, then up at the moon overhead. "If we didn't, then we're the ghosts of Appalachia." A week later, Collier sat in his office, staring at a jar of moonshine that had mysteriously appeared on his desk. No fingerprints. Just a note tucked underneath. "You almost had us. But almost don't count in these hills. Catch ya next season." M&D Collier chuckled in spite of himself. He twisted the lid off the jar and sniffed. Damn if it didn't smell like the cleanest cut of corn liquor he'd ever laid nose to. Final scene back in a different hollow miles away. Mark and Digger stood over a brand new still. Smaller, smarter, better hidden. "You ready to do it all again?" Mark asked. Diva smiled. "Ain't nothing else I'd rather be doing." As the fire kicked up under the new pot, the camera panned wide, catching the pair in silhouette as the steam rose, moonlight glinting off copper. The hills may have eyes, but the moonshiners? They had heart, history, and hell-bent determination, and they weren't done yet. The Appalachian sky was painted in gold and fire as the sun dipped behind the Blue Ridge Mountains. A cool wind rolled through the holler, whistling past towering pines and whispering secrets through the leaves. It was the kind of evening that made a man feel small, and watched. In a clearing deep in the woods of Cock County, Tennessee, Mark Ramsey wiped sweat from his brow as he tightened a valve on their copper pot still. Steam hissed and curled into the air, mingling with the earthy scent of sour mash. Diva Maines stood nearby, arms crossed, his eyes scanning the tree line. "Somethin' don't feel right," he muttered, not for the first time that day. Mark didn't argue. They'd been feeling it all season. The tension, the eyes on their back, the rustle of trouble too close for comfort. "Cody called this morning," Mark said. "Said there's been unmarked trucks cruising the back roads. Game warden's been asking questions about us down at the diner." Digger frowned. Damn, that ain't no coincidence. The two men shared a look. Years of friendship and illegal liquor made words almost unnecessary. They were down to their last run of the season. If the law was coming, they'd have to be ghosts before the sun rose 24 hours earlier. Federal agent Jessup had been chasing Whispers through these mountains for 2 years. Mark and Digger were ghosts to most, local legends who always seemed to be one step ahead of the law. But Jessup was patient. He'd mapped out their likely routes, paid off informants, and gotten lucky with a drone flyover that spotted fresh tire tracks near an old logging road. It was enough for a warrant. "We are moving in tomorrow," Jessup told his team. "They'll be running a night batch. Moonshiners always feel safer in the dark. Let's prove 'em wrong." Back in the hollow, Mark and Digger moved with quiet urgency, siphoning the last of the crystal-clear shine into mason jars. The shine was pure, cleaner than spring water, and worth its weight in gold. They packed the jars into burlap sacks lined with hay to avoid clinking. "You ever think about quittin'?" Digger asked as he hoisted a crate into the back of their ATV. Mark shook his head slowly. "Not once." "You?" Digger smiled. "Only every damn day. But then I remember what the world tastes like without our liquor." Mark chuckled, but his smile faded as a low rumble echoed from the hills. They froze. In the distance, engine noise. Deep, coordinated, too heavy for locals. Not hunters, not hikers. "Time to vanish," Mark said, voice flat. The getaway plan the two had planned for this day. You didn't run Shine for decades without a few tricks up your sleeve. Their still was designed to break down quickly, and within minutes, the copper rig was dismantled and scattered in pre-dug holes, covered in pine needles and camo netting. The ATV roared to life, but they didn't head downhill like the law would expect. Instead, they steered straight up the mountain, into terrain no sane man would try to drive. "We take Dead Man's Hollow," Mark shouted over the engine. "You sure?" Digger yelled back. "That trail's near vertical."